What's going on, everybody? It's Andy here again with another Let's Talk FPL live stream. Bit of a different one. You might call it different, special today. I'm joined by Matt. How's it going?
Hey, Andy. How's things?
Yeah, all good, all good. So for anyone that hasn't been following my Twitter spam over the last couple of days, you'll know, or you won't know, that Matt is currently number 10 in the world. So I think you're only the second person I've had on a stream all season. I had I think it was Tom from Who Got the Assist. I can't remember if it was Nick or Tom. I think it was Tom. The start of the season. So you're the second. I had to wait for a special guest, basically.
Thanks for having me on anyway.
Yeah, no worries. So just to kind of explain what's going to go on, it's like a normal live stream that we do, usually when it's just me. I've got a bunch of pre-submitted questions from YouTube and Twitter, which I'm just going to run through with Matt. We'll try and keep an eye on the chat. It's probably not going to be the same as usual, where we're reading questions directly from the chat. But if we've got time at the end, we'll do that. So if it's cool with you, I think we'll just crack on with all the stuff I've got pre-submitted.
Yeah, sounds good.
Good stuff. So yeah, I guess just for anyone that doesn't know you, I mean, for those that go on Fantasy Football Scout, you are Bowstring the Carp, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of them may know you from that. So what's your kind of FPL history? Like, how long have you been playing for? What kind of got you into it, and what are your like previous ranks and stuff?
Yeah, I think this is my 7th year now. I think my very first season, I was kind of a dead team with a 7-figure rank. Probably set it up in game week 1 and forgot about it for the whole season. Yeah, proper casual, yeah. I think in my 2nd season playing then, I came across Fantasy Football Scout and that got hooked and sucked into the community then. And that's all. That's history then. Yeah, so... I'm trying to think.
What's your best finish before this season?
Before the season was 2 seasons ago when Leicester won the league. I think it was about 760 thereabouts. So yeah, I was really, really happy with that year. Like 3 figures, it's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean 3 figures for most of us is probably good enough, but I suppose to be rocking number 10 right now is pretty awesome. So I guess kind of going on from that, like, how does it feel to be that high up? Because most people watching, they've probably had pretty good finishes every now and again, but being number 10 is a bit different, a bit special, I'd say.
Yeah, it's strange. It is. It feels like a lot of pressure at times. You kind of don't want to be overthinking every move, and you're overthinking things a lot, and you're saying, is this the right move to make? Should I be going for something else here? But yeah, I don't think it's quite sunk in yet. Top 10 is really, really and when you look at the top 10, it's very close. There's only a couple of points separating kind of 3rd down to maybe 15th. There's not a lot in it.
Yeah, I had a look. I think you're currently 38 points behind number 1, which we've seen can be closed in a week, almost a week or 2. Obviously, you'd think that people in the top 10 at this point probably know what they're doing. So it might take a bit longer to go, but yeah, not that far behind. Obviously, got a really good shot of winning it. You obviously know what you're doing. I didn't look at the kind of other teams. Most of them, because what we found earlier in the season, the people at the top have usually used their chips. But right now, I think most of you have got nearly all. There's a couple. I think the guy in second uses second wild card already. I think most of you have got your chips, right? You've got all of them apart from the first wild card.
Yeah, triple captain I've used. I was one of the unfortunate people that got suckered into Kane triple captain a while back. So yeah, it's kind of a bad memory now at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. I don't know if that was. We've spoken about it quite a few times. I don't know if that was such a bad thing. Obviously, it didn't go well, but I don't think the triple captain's the kind of be all and end all, but I suppose we'll see whether someone like Aguero or Salah can absolutely smash it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping it doesn't come back to bite me too much.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't for you. Well, I'm in 2 minds really. One, I want you to do really well, but I also want my triple captain to go smashing. We'll have to see how it goes. One thing I was going to say is I actually had a friend who was number 1 in the world for quite a few weeks, and what he found was he was spending. The way he put it was it's almost daily on checking over things on not necessarily Football Scout, but just FPL in general. Just looking into stats and matches and players and points. And are you finding that you're spending more time than you usually would? And if you are you looking more at stats, more at the eye test, or just the same amount of both?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it to just kind of what I'd usually do. Just a lot of it is eye test this year, but there obviously is, a need for stats. I've taken a big step away from stats. I think last year it's very easy to be given all this information and not quite, not kind of get overloaded with it a little bit. You have so many stats out there, and you're kind of trying to find the one stat that might kind of correlate to points. But yeah, I've taken a step back away from stats and just kind of focused on the eye test. Watching more games now. To get a better feel for it. Some of the kind of movements and stuff from players that stats mightn't be able to quantify, things like that. Yeah.
Did you find that's what you did in previous seasons, or were you more stats focused in previous seasons?
Yeah, I think I was very stat focused in previous seasons, probably too much so. And like that, you can take the wrong stats and it can translate into a bad FPL pick very easily. But yeah, I think I narrowed it back down to things like shots in the box. I think that's a big one. A lot of people now are kind of taking that step forward now and looking at shots on target in the box. So that's definitely, helpful. Try to think what else. I use a lot of XG stats now. That's something that I was only really coming across at the end of last season. It was kind of very new to me. Didn't really understand it a lot, and then came across a few articles and it explained it and made it very clear. You can see it's become very popular now. Even BBC are starting to use it, Sky Sports, things like that. It's a good measure for players that might be underperforming. Like even if we look at Walcott last week, like his XG was quite high. It just gives you another aspect, another viewpoint on the game, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think XG, like you say, expected goals for anyone that doesn't know that seems to be the in thing right now when it comes to looking into football. And Walcott's interesting. We'll probably come on to him later because I know we discussed that a lot on the Scoutcast last night about whether he's a good pick or not. I know a lot of people have either got him or going to go for him. But we're going to come on. The questions I've kind of got from the community, first of all, are probably more, like I say, how did you get here? What's your strategy and stuff like that? And then we'll probably come on to looking at more towards the next game week and stuff. Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. So the first one I've got here is from Jamie Williams. I think this is from Twitter. I think, again, you did an article with Fantasy Football Scout, an interview, so I'll link that below. People can check that out afterwards. But first of all, do you support a club? And if so, does that kind of bias affect your decisions or strategy? And if you don't support a club, do you have that kind of bias with certain players? That's from Jamie Williams. That one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm fortunate and unfortunate to support Swindon. So okay. I think it'll be a long time before I have that FPL bias for my club. I used to be a Liverpool supporter, but long before I was playing FPL. I think for a lot of players, you can kind of get an attachment for maybe a new player that's signed for your club, and you may have an expectation for him, and you may be tempted to put him in your fantasy football team and hope that he can live up to that expectation. So it can work, it doesn't work. I think I'm kind of fortunate not to have that bias. But obviously other biases come into account. There's like I said in the article on Fantasy Football Scout, there's players that you just grow to hate and grow to love, and you'll put them in even if their stats are very, very bad. And like when you talk about on Fantasy Football Scout about like nostalgia picks, it's very easy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think going back to Walcott, that kind of comes into it. And for sure, like Sanchez for me was, I thought he could do okay, but it was easier to convince myself because he plays for Man United. So yeah, I can see how supporting Swindon kind of helps you a bit for that. Never know. Wonder how does an Irishman support Swindon? How did that happen?
My grandfather used to drive the team bus around in the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
He did a bit of work over in England, so there's a bit of a connection there. It's a weak connection. I'm more of an armchair supporter. I kind of check the scores every weekend. Don't ask me to name any players or anything though.
Well, my granddad actually used to do similar for Bristol Rovers, but I still went ahead and became a glory supporter for Man United. So here's one from Ben Scott. So if you watch the streams a lot, Ben's usually in here moderating and stuff. said, is having a good start to the season while maintaining your chips the key to, getting and maintaining a good rank? I.e., obviously, yes, if you start high, it's going to help you. But do you think it's just easy to make decisions when you start that high? And then how did you prepare for the start of the season? And did you do that differently to a normal season, or was it just a bit of luck at the start?
Yeah, so like there's a lot there. Like I think I approached it the same as any other season. I kind of I watched some preseason games, but didn't really take too much from it because it is very hard to take form from preseason and try and apply it to competitive football. But it definitely gives you an eye for maybe new players, how a manager wants to use them, whether he's in preseason, if he's got a set piece, maybe he wants to set pieces. Things like that can give you a bit of an edge, I think. But then again, like I think it was Maudou Barrow for Swansea. I think he had like something like 3 goals and 6 assists in preseason, and a lot of people were talking him up as maybe a cheap third striker, and like we couldn't have been far wrong, far worse in that pick. So like coming up to the start of the season, it's kind of difficult to explain. Definitely taking end of season form into account. I think that's a good place to start, because especially if there's the same manager there from last season, you can kind of expect them to want to play the same, unless maybe it's a relegation team, they might be playing quite defensively just in order to stay up. And then again, it's hard to judge in the next season if that manager's still there, what way they want to play. Yeah, so picking a team is very difficult because, like, I mean, there's no form. I generally go by fixtures because there's no form. So that's usually where I start from. And obviously there is a huge amount of luck involved because everyone's on the same playing field. Nobody has a clue who's going to be the standout picks, who's going to be like the Mahrez's, the kind of budget midfielders that's going to overperform and give you value for money.
And have you ever had a start that good? Because I think I checked your game weeks from this year. You've only just been outside the top 50k once. I think your first game week was like inside the top 30k, which in week 1 is crazy high.
Yeah, I think now I actually did have a better season. A better start. I'm trying to think when it was. I think it was the year 2012, 2013, where I finished like 46k. I think game week 1, was that where Chelsea had a double game week?
Oh yeah, there was one there.
It was that one anyway. And I think I had Ivanovic and he got like a goal and a clean sheet. And then there was like I think it was when Michu was in the league as well. And a lot of people were kind of hemming and hawing whether they were going to get him. And I think he scored 2 on his debut, or he definitely got 1. Anyway.
He had a really good start. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So like that, it's a combination of kind of some reliable picks from previous seasons and kind of a few lucky punts that may or may not work out.
And then just converting it from there like you've done this year.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of take out the fodder and those that are delivering, hold on to them.
Good stuff. There's a few people in the chat asking kind of what your team is and stuff. I don't think we're going to run through the team right now, but I'll put links below. I've actually put a link to your Twitter below, so if people want to follow you, they can do that. Just click on that, follow you, and I'm sure we can get a link to your team down there as well afterwards so they can check. So the next question is from Fantasy Terrier Team, which is FML FPL on Twitter. It says, how far ahead do you plan transfers and strategy, and does this change over the course of the season? So do you plan further or less ahead as the season goes on?
Yeah, I think that's something I used to do in the past a lot. I'd bring in a player with a kind of a 6-week kind of period that I'd hope to hold them for. But I think this season I've kind of cut it back to kind of 3 or 4 games. Because like that, you can end up with players in your team in hopes that he'll be there for maybe 5 or 6 game weeks and his form could go out the window straight away. And before you know it, you might have an injury or suspension you're using your free transfers on. And he's just there doing nothing, and it's very hard to get rid of him. So I kind of keep it to about maybe 3 or 4 game weeks. Definitely cut it back this year. For smaller teams, definitely, because I find that the smaller teams, their form can change very, very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, especially those down at relegation zone. Yeah. So I keep to about 3 or 4 weeks, taking form and the fixtures into account.
I think you've done that. You had Aguero for his like kind of 8 goals in 4 games period, and you had him. I think you had him a bit before that, didn't you? For a game when it was Kane out or something, or he had a bad fixture. Bournemouth, I think.
Yeah, or maybe it was was it when Morata was suspended? Is that
that's the one? Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so Morata got suspended.
Sorry, have you? So you bought him in for Morata. Did you get rid of him before the 4-game period and then get him back?
I can't remember actually. I think I ditched him at one stage because I think Jesus was starting to threaten his position. Okay. But yeah, the opportunity came up when Morata got suspended, and it was one of those things, kind of the form versus fixture debate. Because Morata, he was looking okay. He was starting to dip a little bit, and then when he was coming back after suspension, Chelsea had still very, very good fixtures, which made a lot of people hold on to him. So I think I had a free transfer knocking about, and there was no major issues in the team. So I thought Aguero had a great fixture. He was a good captaincy option. So I decided to bring him in. And I said, look, if Morata looks good, I can always make the swap back. So I captained him, and I think he got a brace and an assist. And a lot of people were on Kane actually that week, and he got the hat-trick. So
yeah, no, I had him, but I mean, generally over those kind of few weeks and the next kind of 7-8 week period after that, Aguero actually destroyed. So I think even if you didn't have Kane for the hat trick, you've done pretty well. So have you? One thing I didn't check actually, have you taken a lot of hits this season, like more or less than usual? Because if you're happy to take players out for short periods of time, then obviously you're using up a few more transfers, which obviously worked. But have you had to take more hits this year?
I think I've taken around the same amount of hits. I never really take a hit unless I have to, unless there's injuries and I'm struggling to get 11 players out. I kind of like to rely on using my bench if there's a player out for maybe just one, or like if he just has a knock, if he's out for a week. A strong bench definitely helps there, but ultimately I think it's kind of luck, because you never know when a player is going to be out. You might get late team news and things like this happen.
I've actually checked. You're only taken 4 hits, so that's pretty low, I'd say.
Yeah, it is quite low. I think the difference between this season and last season was I took quite a lot of punts, because the season didn't really start out well, and I found myself trying to make up the ground by taking maybe taking a few risks on players that, if they exploded and got a great points return, would have shot me up the ranks, but it didn't turn out that way. So I think chasing a lead can be, tempting to take a few players in that you wouldn't normally go for. I think a big thing last season was I had a lot of injuries. There was players that were on my bench for weeks and weeks, and like I said, you get other problems in your team. You get suspensions and injuries, and they can add up very quickly. And before you know it, you're losing value on players. You haven't got the time to get rid of them. That's a big difference this year. As well as that, picking players that may or may not start. That's a big risk. Pick players that start 100%. So yeah, they're just a few things that come to mind.
It's quite funny that stuff like pick players that are going to play, because when you say it out loud, it just sounds so obvious. But yeah. I've done it. I don't do it all the time. There's always that player who just tempts you. You think, well, if he starts, he's going to play, and then he just doesn't. So yeah, sometimes the simple advice, I think, is definitely the best. So kind of going on from that, Jossie, FPL Jossie says, one of your friends, is it?
Yeah.
It's not a bad one, don't worry. Not like the one that Madrid stuck up. So do you utilise the expertise of others in the community, or do you feel you've achieved this all on your own?
No, I think this is just like a shameless plug from Jossie to get our WhatsApp group mentioned. So last year, the Fantasy Freak, another fancy football scout regular, he started up a WhatsApp group just for kind of guys that took FPL quite seriously, and I think there's 33 of us now. So Yeah, it's really interesting because like we're very active throughout the day. There's a lot of us in different time zones, so there's always somebody active on the group, and there's a lot of great input there. Like, you know, without that group, I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am now, which is actually leads me on to a kind of a funny story that a few of the like when I had Son in my team, it was actually like a bet with one of the guys in the WhatsApp group. I was just like, I'll put him in if you put him in, just as a joke, and like he started hauling. So another little bit of luck in my favor. Yeah, I think I took out Richarlison actually, which definitely worked. So that was profit actually, another fancy football scout regular. So yeah, but like that, it's just good community spirit. Same with fancy football scout. You know, it's definitely good to have other people's inputs and see what other people are doing. It gives you a broader perspective. It's good to have that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely up for discussion. That's kind of why I like when I do the streams, I'm not really there to kind of give out info or anything. I just like chatting to people, see what their positions are and what their thoughts are, and go from there, I suppose. So yeah, it's cool. The problem is now everyone's going to want into that WhatsApp group. So I don't know if we've got any space. What else do we have here? We've probably kind of gone over this with how you've played, but Alex Newman says, what have been your keys to success? Do you think there's like maybe one or two things that have really helped you this season versus others?
Yeah, I think the main thing that comes to mind from the last few seasons is just being a bit more patient. If you have a bad weekend, very tempting to, you know, go in and kind of the old kind of knee-jerk conundrum where you might have 2 free transfers, and it's very tempting to take out players that have done nothing for that week and replace them with someone that seems to be coming into great form. But I think holding on to transfers as long as you can coming up to the deadline, whether it's a Saturday morning or a Friday evening deadline, I think that just gives you so much more information. You know, you get the press conferences from the managers, especially if there's games midweek. You know, you get a lot of you can pick up a lot of injuries. We've seen, like in the article I did with Top Marks on Fantasy Football Scout, you know, Marko Arnautovic, he picked up an injury, and I don't even think West Ham had a game midweek. You know, these things can happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. That's definitely something I've been playing like 7 or 8 seasons as well, and I used to make my transfers like on Monday or Tuesday, just get it done, rage transfer in. And now I just, well, apart from this weekend when I got Baines in, but that's a whole different story. So this is probably a question we should save to the end, but I'm going to do it now anyway. So you're number 10 in the world, 38 points off the top. Jamal Rice, who, if you don't know, is actually 12th in the world.
That's right. So yeah, he's having a great season. Yeah,
he's having a really good season as well. I think he's in the chat. He usually is. He says, "Do you believe that you can win it?"
I think if Leicester can win the Premier League, I think anything's possible. It's very, very close. I think the guy in fourth place a couple of weeks ago, I think the distance between myself and number one was about 85 points. So like here, about 5 game weeks later, it's down to 38. So when you see a lead like that becoming, you know, a 30-point lead, 35-point lead, it definitely gives you kind of a bit of a boost. But then again, the reality of it kind of hits in your panic stations.
So yeah, so have you started thinking about whether what will happen if you win? That it could really happen, or are you trying to like just wait a few more weeks? Because obviously still, was it 8 or 9 weeks to go now? So
yeah,
not that long.
I mean, a lot can happen in those 8 or 9 weeks. You know, you could slip out of the top 10 very quickly, slip out of the top 100 very quickly. Yeah, that's like, I mean, 8-9 game weeks is a long time. There's a lot of football to be played. I think the chips will ultimately decide, a lot of the swing and rank for FPL managers. There's a lot of people who might be kind of sitting around maybe between the 20 and 30 overall rank mark, who might have all of their chips left. And if they hit the nail on the head with those chips, they could shoot up the ranks very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. So Yeah, we'll move on then to, I guess, the kind of future next few game weeks. There's a lot of chip questions, as you can imagine, blank, double game weeks, etc., all coming up. Plus, we have to get through game week 30 as well, which I think everyone's just. Are you dreading game week 30? I think everyone just wants it out of the way at this point.
Yes and no. That's what I was just looking at my team before we went live, and it's looking a bit like a pool table at the minute with all the yellow and reds everywhere. But I think a lot of them, like O'Bonnett and Robertson, I'm hoping they come back. Sterling is an interesting one. I think there's a question about Sterling, so I don't know if you want me to wait till later to discuss Sterling.
Well, you own him, yeah?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, maybe not for much longer though.
Yeah, I've got him too, so I'm more than happy to discuss it. I think there's a question later on, like if it comes up, I'll find out whose name it was. But yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think I'm going to lose Sterling. I was very hopeful last week when I seen the pictures going around of him training on Monday. And I mean, geez, City have played 3 times since then. He hasn't even made the squad. So I'm not so sure if he's fully fit. Maybe he picked up an injury late in the week or something. So it's definitely a worry.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it reminds me of, because I kept him as well. And, obviously wasn't expecting necessarily anything against Chelsea, but I thought if he plays and he plays against Stoke, then, you don't really want to get rid of someone that you've got in pretty cheap and who's scored so many points this season. But it reminds me a bit of like Rose from last year. So he had an injury and people had him in their team, and there was never really any bad news about him. It was kind of, yeah, he's back now. And that just went on and on and on. And then he had to have surgery, and he didn't come back till like right into the season. Then Ben Davies suddenly become an option. So it feels a bit like that to me. Like Pep's not really giving anything away, yet he's not coming back. So I don't know whether it is a bigger injury, or someone even said that they might have fallen out or something. I don't know. I feel like we're in a tricky position now, because he's obviously got Stoke, which out of the ones we've kept him for is one of the best fixtures, if not the best, out of kind of the last 3 or 4. Yeah. So I feel like because I've kept him, I almost want to keep him. But at the same time, I guess it's just a case of you're hanging around then. Like you're just hanging around waiting for the inevitable.
And I mean, as well as that, like his price bracket, there's, a few options opening up. There's like, Mahrez, if you can stretch your budget. There's, Son is back in form as well. They're 2 players that could, maybe get double digits in the next game. Even though they have a blank in 31, like, they could still have, decent value in them, especially game weeks 32 and 33. They have, quite decent fixtures, especially Mahrez. So that he's one that I'm thinking of bringing in for Sterling.
So, yeah, I suppose going on from that then, I've got loads of questions about this. How are you set for game week 31, first of all? How many players do you have that are going to play right now?
I think, without checking, I think I have about 7. I think I have 7. And depending whether I roll a free transfer or, try and get into game week 32 with 2 free transfers, that's kind of a decision that'll be made nearer the blank. So, I think I have my team here. I'll just...
Yeah, no, it is 7. I just checked.
Is it 7, yeah.
And they're pretty decent ones as well, actually. Like I've got 7, but I've got like Ivan Crouch. But you've got kind of MacArthur. Okay, sure, he's not going to score loads, but he's going to play.
Yeah,
he's and Walcott. You're pretty well set.
Yeah. So I'll probably bring in Schindler this week. I think I'm going to lose Jones. There's not been a lot said about Jones. Kind of Mourinho's keeping us in the dark about him. He's like Sterling. He always seems to be close, and again, there's still no sign of him returning. So I think we've got to do 2 free transfers. Use 2 free transfers this week. Bring in someone like Schindler or Zanka. Huddersfield, they have a nice game this week. They've got the game in 31, and they're 2 weeks after that aren't too bad. Even though there are 2 away games, I think one's away to Newcastle and is the other one Brighton? Maybe I can't remember.
I'd have to double check. I know they've got an okay run. Like I know people. I'm certainly looking at maybe bringing in one of their attackers this week. So so if you're looking at them then and kind of looking ahead to kind of fixing 32 or 33, does that mean you're putting off your wild? Because a lot of people are looking at using their wild card in 32 and 33. So you're looking at maybe leaving it longer than that, or just not?
Yeah. If I was using my bench boost in the double game week, I think obviously I'd have the wild card the week before. But I was thinking of holding onto bench boost for maybe the later double game week. It's probably going to be around game week 37. So I may actually wildcard for game week 34 when the doubles, when the doubles roll around. I'm kind of 90% sure, but like that, I'm kind of flexible enough. A lot can happen then. Especially in game week 33 with the Manchester Derby. I mean, that could decide the league, so it may be a good time to get rid of City players after that. It's hard to know. They may turn their attention to Europe after that and not feel a weak team. I mean, I don't think City have a weak team, but definitely rotate a lot in the Premier League.
Yeah, obviously Spurs went out of the Champions League tonight, so I guess from a kind of picking players' point of view, they're probably now the ones to start looking at. But yeah, City are going to be a nightmare once the league wrapped up. I think you could be right off. So I can definitely see why you would wildcard in 34. Do you think you're doing that because you don't have the triple captain? Do you think your strategy might be a bit different if you still had that?
Yeah, like that coming up to 34, the double game weeks, I'm thinking like Manchester United have pretty good double game week. They'll likely have West Brom and West Ham. But then again, it's a bit tricky trying to pick a Man United attacker that's going to kind of stand out. Chelsea, they'll have two good games, but they're going to be away, I think. And Spurs could be a good shout. Like, a lot of people could triple captain Harry Kane if they have their chip in 34. I think they'll have a home game against City and maybe another home game against Newcastle, something like that. So it's hard to know. But like that, if I do use bench boost in the double game week, I'll have to wildcard the week before.
Okay, nice. So basically leaving options open, I suppose. And
I don't like to set anything in stone, because these things can change very, very quickly.
Definitely. So, okay, let's see what we've got next there. There's so many chip questions. I'll try not to repeat myself all the time. Here's a good one actually, and this is something that gets discussed every year. Just get your opinion on it. Is it okay to get... So, obviously, when double game weeks come around, people start wildcarding. They start looking at kind of going for 13, 14, 15 double game week players, completely ignoring those that don't have doubles, i.e. Liverpool this year don't have any doubles. So, I think it's Path Sanil says, is it okay to get rid of single game week players, such as Salah, which is an interesting one to pick, I think, given how well he's done this year, for a double game week in the next wildcard? So, I suppose in general, would you advise it? And more so for Salah, do you think he's someone you can get rid of even in a double?
Yeah, it's a very tough question to answer. Like we've seen already earlier in the season, Spurs and West Ham have the double game weeks, and I'm pretty sure there was a few single week players that outscored a lot of players with double game weeks that week. So I mean, it is possible. It's all about kind of cherry picking the ones that you think have the potential to get double figure hauls that week. We're game week 34. Like Liverpool will probably have, I think, Bournemouth at home.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that doesn't seem like a fixture you don't want Salah for.
Yeah, I mean, any other week that's like, Salah captain locked in, but obviously the double game week changes things there. I'd probably want to keep Salah. I mean, depends on who you're going to be putting in place of him. If you're going to be losing much sell value, value on him from selling him, because a lot of people will have him from early on in the season. If you take him out, you could be buying them back the next week for 0.6 more or whatever the difference might be. So I think it depends on the team as well. I probably will keep Salah because Liverpool have a very good run in to the end of the season, and it just saved the hassle of using a free transfer to get him back in.
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, I've had him since game week 1. I think he's like 10.7 now, so I got him at 9. He's almost at the point where he's going to cost me $1 million more to kind of buy him back. And I guess one thing to say is kind of still a few weeks off, like you say, so anything could change. But at that point, you'll have to just see where Liverpool are in Europe, because I don't know if it was last season or the season before, but Klopp rotated a lot because of Europe. So it'll depend on whether they're guaranteed top 4 and stuff. Well, I think once that's sorted, then it's kind of everything gets thrown out for Europe. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I think Salah, last year, I think I kept a single game week player. I think I had 1 out of 15, which was Josh King. But I think he was a bit different because he was scoring like Salah, but he was only 6 million. So it was much easier to
Yeah.
keep in the team. So yeah, like you say, we'll just have to.
Yeah, it's especially if they're out of position as well. It's very tempting to keep them. Like, last year Josh King, I think he was playing up top for most of the season, and he was considered a midfielder, wasn't he?
Oh, he was awesome. I wish we had him back in midfield. Okay, so bringing it back from double game weeks back to the blank. I think this is another one of your mates, Daniel Bedborough. He's in the chat a lot anyway. How many players should we have for game week 31? And is it worth taking a 12-point hit to get a full team? Would you advocate hits in general for the blank?
Not really. I've actually been saying this to the guys since we kind of knew about the blank stat. I've no intention of fielding 11 players for that week. No intention of using free hit to get 11 players out. I mean, the teams that are playing, a lot of them are relegation matchups. Like you see Huddersfield against Palace, even Everton against Stoke could be an interesting one. Bournemouth and West Brom. I don't see any players worth taking a hit for that week. That I can't see any players justifying the hit. There's a few with the potential, like he's talked on the Scoutcast last night. There are a few players that have the potential to get double figure hauls that week. But I think once you have triple Liverpool, someone like Shaqiri or Walcott, there's a lot of people divided whether to go Salah, Mane, Firmino from Liverpool, or throw in someone like Robertson and Van Dijk to cover the kind of clean sheet potential, because it's going to be a very hard week to pick clean sheets out. Bournemouth maybe, Liverpool I think definitely have the highest clean sheet potential there, so that's why I went with Robertson a few weeks back with that kind of week in mind. But yeah, again, I've no intention of getting 11 players out. I don't think it'll be worth it long term using free transfers to take them out in 32 and 33. I think it'd just be a bit messy, and you could be missing out on some other players there.
So not feeling 11, will you look at any hits, or will it just depend on if they're absolutely needed, i.e. you suddenly get a bout of injuries?
No, to be honest, I'm fairly happy with the players that are there in my team already for game week 31. The biggest kind of decision to make is whether to roll a free transfer into 32, which will allow me to take maybe a punt on somebody, maybe ship Walcott or Shaqiri out. Because I mean, people have to remember when Everton play Stoke, the week after they've got Man City and then they've got Liverpool. I mean, obviously the Merseyside derby is very hard to predict. Sometimes there's a lot of goals in that. You don't know which Everton is going to show up. So maybe Walcott could be good for that week. It's kind of a calculated risk from everyone, whatever they think is best. But yeah, Shaqiri, he's away to Arsenal. Now Arsenal, their form isn't great. It may be worth holding on to him for that week. Who knows? And then he's got Spurs. So I can see a lot of people maybe wanting to jump ship on Everton and Stoke. Like that they might want to take a punt on, I don't know, maybe Arsenal if they can get their form together. Someone like Ramsey. Even West Brom have 2 nice home games if they can get their form up a little bit. So yeah, there's a few options there to kind of keep your eye on.
Yeah, definitely. I think actually kind of talking about teams like West Brom. So Florin Sandu asks, are fixtures... So this is kind of going into the last stretch rather than how you'd play for the in a normal season. So are fixtures more important than form within the last stretch? So are you going to start looking for teams that are kind of fighting for Champions League spots, relegation, who obviously have to win at that point? It's not a case of it would be nice to win. They need to win to survive, basically.
Yeah, it's a good question because I think I'll definitely be looking at teams that have something to play for. Whether it's the top 4 or the bottom 4, I think there's that added incentive for players to try, score a few extra goals that might keep them up in the league next year. It's kind of a catch-22 because the teams that are nearly safe might shut up shop and make it difficult for other teams to score against them. Just kind of grind out results and hope they don't lose, even play for the draw sometime. And from that kind of perspective, they can be good for getting defenders from. But yeah, we do see near the end of the season, even in previous seasons, you do get the odd game that doesn't quite make sense. Like, I think Lukaku got a hat-trick away to United on the last day, won the seasons. Like, I think West Brom were safe, and I think United had their position wrapped up, whatever it was. And I think it was a 3-3 game. Like, you get games like that are kind of anomaly games, and somebody goes crazy like Lukaku.
Yeah, I definitely think from previous seasons, once a team doesn't have anything to play for, if they're just concentrating on Europe, it's just time to get rid of it. We might even see, I wonder if we might see a manager change before the end of the season for someone like West Brom. Yeah. Maybe if Pardew leaves and they can get someone in to actually win some games, because I think they've won like 4 in like 30 matches or something ridiculous. So I'm not sure I'm looking at West Brom just yet, but who knows what might happen when they've got something to fight for. Okay, so I only actually got a few more questions left. I know this is a difficult one to answer because we don't know who we're going to wildcard in just yet. But let's not say specific players. Would you, when you do wildcard, will you be looking at differentials because you want to get up? Will you be looking to block because you don't want to fall, or will you just be looking for kind of a few punts, a lot of punts? Like how will you plan that?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's any need to kind of stray too far away from the template, the kind of template team. I think the players that we have at the minute are there in the team for a reason, like, because they're constantly delivering, and they're good captaincy picks, and ownership is another reason. Like, if let's say if I look at the top 50 and a certain player is owned quite highly, I'd be a lot more reluctant to lose him just because simply of the damage he could do. But yeah, there will definitely be a shift, I think, from the template when people start wildcarding. A lot of people might jump on Arsenal because of the fixtures, even though at the minute they mightn't have the form. And like that, a couple of teams may not have the fixtures, but they may have the form. So, it'll definitely divide people as the last kind of 8 game weeks comes around.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I saw someone in the last stream we did that said, this seems like a bit too far of a punt, but it could be one way to get the ranks. It's like they're gonna not have Kane, Harry Kane, who scored 7 goals in the last 2 fixtures last year, and like you say, go for someone like Aubameyang for Arsenal and just take that much of a punt. I mean, in your position, I think that would take some balls to do something like that. I think because that could easily cause you to lose rank. But maybe for people that are much lower down, that's the kind of thing you maybe have to do. But it can definitely hurt. So maybe the odd kind of punt here or there, but mostly you're going to be man after my own heart and stick to the template.
Yeah, play very boring. Yeah,
I like it.
But boring but safe. Boring but safe.
Yeah, it works. It absolutely works year in, year out. What do we have here? So 3 questions to end this stretch of ones I got pre-submitted. This is more about FPL in general rather than kind of the game weeks to come, etc. So just to get your opinions, really. So Sam Fleet says, what do you think of how price range works? Price changes work. Obviously, we get a bit of an idea from community sites and stuff, but we don't really know how a player goes up or down. And do you think? I think this got suggested on the Scoutcast that I think it was Granville actually that if a player isn't highly owned, that they start reducing their price slightly to maybe get a bit of a differential there and get more players becoming viable. So, for example, Ozil, no one's really looking at him because he's 9.5 million. But if they dropped his price a bit as the season went on, when he gets down to 8.7, 8.8, maybe then he's a little bit more tempting. Do you think that's something they could do, or are you kind of happy with price changes as they are?
I'm kind of in 2 minds about that, because I think people get this mindset that if you're paying, let's take Alexis Sanchez, he's expensive because on his day he can, bang in a hat trick. Maybe since gone to United, he's playing in a different role. He might be playing a little bit deeper, not getting a lot of shots away. But we know that these type of players on their day, can score a massive amount of points. And I think the mindset that people get is that you have to own them for the entire season. Yeah. You only have to own them for maybe a 4 or 5 game week period when they're on form, and get their value worth. You might even captain them in a couple of games when they're hitting that form. And I think that's why the price is, you know, like why Sanchez might be the most expensive mid in the game. Now he hasn't shown it so far lately, but like you said, you got kind of sucked into that trap yourself. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I know a lot of other fantasy games, well, a few anyway, they kind of readjust the price on form each week.
Yeah,
I can't remember which game does it, but it's interesting. It's something to keep in mind for sure. And like you mentioned about the community sites that kind of keep track on price rises and price fallers. And we've seen actually, you know, I keep track on it myself, and we've seen some strange, you know, players rising from, like, they might have had like a 30% drop or something, or a 40% drop, and they might look like they're a few days away from rising, and then out of nowhere they rise. And it's always the way you find yourself like 0.1 million short of the transfer you want to do. Yeah,
every single time. I think Salah went up this week or last week with only 10,000 transfers in or something like that. So yeah, I'm not sure how it works. I mean, would you like to see more transparency, or does it not really bother you that much?
I don't know. I think it's kind of fun in a way, because the players who make their moves early, they're denying themselves that information, you know, of or that kind of peace of mind that their players are going to get in. The players aren't going to get injured midweek, or they're going to miss something that a manager might says in, you know, a Friday press conference about someone picking up a knock in training that, you know, you could have waited for. So I think it's fair the way it is. It kind of separates the people that want to take a risk to the people that want to wait and suffer the price drops, which I've done a lot of times this season. I mean, my team value, it's decent, but there's, you know, some managers out there who love team value. Jossie, actually, who left a message, he's crazy about team value. You know, so personally, like, if a player was dropping, and I'd be happy to take a 0.1 drop just to get that peace of mind and that assurance that none of my other players are going to pick up knocks in training. You know, yeah, it just depends on which way you play. If you're kind of risk averse, or, you know.
Which one actually? Yeah, I've pretty much. So last year I did that. I stopped worrying about price changes. I said on the Scatcast earlier this season, I barely look at them now. So yeah, it worked out well for me last year. It hasn't. I've had red arrows all over the place the last few weeks, but before that it was working out okay. So I'm still continuing to do that. I don't really check the prices apart from right at the start of the season. So it's a bit different because it's so volatile, and you don't quite know who's going to be worth it long term, so you don't want to lose too much money. But yeah, no, I fully agreed there with you, I think. And then one other thing that's kind of come up a lot, especially if you use Twitter, I don't know if it's been talked about on community sites and stuff so much, is the bonus point system. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy recently with kind of Butland getting 3 bonus and not getting a clean sheet, Salah missing out so much. I guess, again, do you care that much? I mean, when you look at how many bonus points are actually given out, you look at, like, Salah's got about 23, I think. De Bruyne's got 28. It's not even that many points. Do you think it needs changing though? Because to me, there's not that many occurrences where it's really bad. For the most part, it seems to work.
Yeah, I was listening to the Scoutcast last night, and it was a very good discussion. I can't remember if it was Az or Granville that said it. You know, if they don't reach, like, let's say 30 BPS.
Yeah, that's Granville.
Yeah, it was Granville. I think he has a point there, because if a player with low BPS is getting maximum bonus points, it's not really on merit. It's more on everybody else doing worse. You know, just being kind of like the best of the worst players.
Yeah.
I think that could be something that could be looked at. Like, even maybe not even as high as 30, maybe 25. It's interesting. Or another suggestion that I was actually thinking of is just to do away with bonus points altogether and kind of resort to the kind of Champions League model of things, like rewarding, let's say, defenders for tackles and clearances, things like that. And then each player will be kind of awarded on their own merit. Like, it would definitely make defender picks and 4 at the back a huge option. Just something I was thinking of anyway.
Yeah, I wrote some notes actually, because I was thinking about doing a video on it just to kind of chat about it. And that's one of the things I did, so that everyone can earn bonus points rather than there only being 3 players. So like you say, if Salah, Firmino and Mane score really well, but the defenders keep a clean sheet, and they've done that by loads of blocks and clearances, they still get rewarded for it. I think that might be a better option, because then you don't have the, there's supposed to be only 3 players per game, so a lot of people miss out a lot of times. So yeah, I like that suggestion.
It'd be nice as well, because it'd certainly open up like the kind of the 4.5 midfielders a little bit more. It'd be nice to see like the Emir Chans, the McCarters coming off your bench maybe one week, and they've put in a super performance, and they've made like 4 or 5 tackles, like, that'd been worthwhile, and get 5 points off your bench for essentially your 5th playing mid. It'd be just something nice.
Do you think
stand there 2 points, like?
Yeah, so do you think they should look to kind of bring in more players? So, because Sky kind of works like that. So I don't know, probably not this year, but I remember playing a season or 2 ago, and players like Jordan Henderson are quite good in games like that. Whereas for FPL, for the most part, you don't get him in because he doesn't score assists or not. But for Sky, he's passing, tackling, and kind of all sorts.
Yeah, I'd be kind of a bit dubious about the passing stats. Like, it's obviously a player that gets like 90, let's say even 95% pass rate for an entire game. That's fantastic. But like, you look at players like off Man City this year, like Otamendi, and and they literally just pass it around the back for fun. Yeah. And it'd just be, I think it would kind of ruin the game in that sense, because you know that they're going to get like rack up 600 or 700 passes a game, and you're guaranteed Otamendi's going to be given 2 points for his pass rate. Now, it could be good, it could be worse, it could be good or bad, but I think with some tweaks, they could get it right, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I would like a bigger player pool. I don't know if the only thing that I ever worry about is that they bring in like defensive midfielders and stuff, and then you kind of sat there waiting for him to get an extra couple of tackles instead of waiting for your player to score, and like then to me it becomes more of a stats game than it maybe already is, because you have to look at who got the most tackles this week. Whereas that's not what you're watching when you watch a game, really. You're not paying attention to it. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they make any changes next year. So this is kind of the last pre-submitted question. We've got to the end. From Matthew Berry. I'll add a bit to it. Chips-wise, what do you think of them in general? And then he says, if you could design your own chip, which one? What would it be?
Ooh, when the chips came out, I was a bit dubious about them. I thought they were a little bit gimmicky, kind of overcomplicating what should, in essence, kind of be a simple game. I mean, obviously, it's nice when you pull off a successful triple captain, or you hit bench boost and you're getting like an extra 20, maybe 25 points, from a random clean sheet that you might have never expected. I was listening to some of the suggestions on the Scoutcast for the chips. I mean, there's a lot of potential there to bring in, some really decent ideas. I haven't actually given it a thought myself, what kind of chips there is, but again,
here's the thing though. Rather than choosing one, like, would you like to see them? The thing that I think is just so easy for them to do is to just double the ones that you've got already, apart from wildcards, because obviously you've already got 2, and just let us use them in the first half of the season, because of course we can use triple captain and bench boost in the first half if we want to, but no one starts off the season thinking that. We just wait till the double game weeks, and I think it becomes a bit tedious. So I mean, would you like to see more, if more, so that you could use them in the first half of the season, or make it so that they force you to use them outside of a double game week?
No, I think I'd probably be more in favour of having less chips. I think, like I said, I think it overcomplicates what's a simple game, and I think it's just too much hassle then. You're planning around chips, and the fixtures getting rearranged, and then it just becomes too messy, I think. That's just my thoughts anyway.
Good stuff. So that is literally, I say literally all the questions out. I think we've been going for about an hour. So yeah, I think I'll probably leave it there, unless there's anything in particular you wanted to discuss or mention that we maybe forgot.
No, not that I can think of. Geez, it doesn't even feel like an hour at all.
I know. I just checked the time. It's like 20 to 11. I think we'll leave it there. And we got through loads of questions. Obviously, got good insight into kind of how you got to number 10 and what your kind of strategy is going forward and stuff. And leave your options open and just plan a couple of game weeks ahead in the time. So hopefully people take stuff away from that. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate some good answers there. And good luck with the rest of the season. I'm hoping. I can't say too much because Jamal's still in the chat, but I'm I'm hoping you can take it on and win it. Last question, actually, because I saw it in the chat earlier on. Where does Bowstring the Carp come from?
Oh, it's actually an old RuneScape origin. So back in the day when I played RuneScape, it was actually Bowstring was my kind of username. And then when I got into fishing, it was Bowstring the Trout originally on Fancy Football Scout. And then I went off trout fishing onto carp fishing. So there you go.
I think carp's got a better ring to it.
Yeah. Rolls off the tongue a bit better, doesn't it?
Yeah. All right, cool, Matt. We'll leave it there. For anyone that's enjoyed the stream, give it a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff as usual. If you're not already, follow Matt. It's Matt Kearney 32?
92. Matt Kearney
92, yeah. For anyone that's not from Ireland, they're not going to have a clue how to spell that. So check the description below. I've got a link to it. I'll tweet out afterwards. I've tagged you enough today, so I'm sure people have seen it. But yeah, give me a follow. Cheers for tuning, Matt. I'll leave it there, and maybe we'll get you on later on in the season and see how you're going.
Cheers. Thanks very much, Andy. Thanks for listening, everybody.